Hello, everybody. This is Echoes of War. I'm joined here by my co-host, Garav. How are you?
Hey Craig, great to be back and looking forward to today's episode as well.
As am I, because we are speaking about a subject I do not know very well. I honestly can say my knowledge of this subject is based solely upon a show I watched years back and, reading a little bit into it. It is going to be on, well, specifically the Battle of Watling Street, but it's going to be involving, the revolt of the infamous Boudica. Is that how you pronounce her name, by the way?
Yeah, from what I've seen everyone else pronounce it, I've only heard it as that. So,
Okay. Because I was going to say, it sounds like one of those names where there might be two different pronunciations, like Kaiser and Caesar, but I desist. Before we jump into it, however, I just want to say to everybody, if you'd like to further support the channel, please go check out the YouTube membership or my Patreon account over at www.patreon.com/the Pacific War channel. By joining either of these, you get access to the exclusive podcast, early access to all the content I make, and voting rights for the subjects I will tackle next. And I just finished the next exclusive podcast. It's going to be on how the Sicilian mafia helped the Allies during World War II. Plus, I decided to just kind of go into the history of Lucky Luciano because I mean I had to. He's a very interesting character, and I didn't think it did justice to the episode if I didn't kind of delve into all the things he got up into. It's pretty fun. Also, if you're listening to this, this is going to be the first time I'll acknowledge we are definitely on the Pacific War channel as far as YouTube is concerned. This is going to be the home of Echoes of War. It took a long time to come to this conclusion, but I think this is the right choice going forward, and you can expect a lot more visualization. So, like we've done previously, we are going to share stuff such as paintings, the maps, the figures we're going to be talking about. So if you're watching this, you can see this is just an illustration of the Battle of Watling Street. And if you're listening to this on audio platforms, you will not get to see such things. So I think it's in your best interest because pretty soon I want to do some battles like in the 1930s in China. And I can guarantee any of you probably don't know your Chinese geography, so it'll help immensely if you're watching the map. It'll really increase the experience. But stating all of that, perhaps I'll just give a little intro before I hand it over to Garov. The Battle of Watling Street was fought in 60 or 61 AD. This is something I've come across every time I try to do research on the subject. People don't seem to understand what year it was, if it was 60 or 61 AD. I don't know. Is that an issue of primary sources, Gareth?
I think it's more really on the sources as well because even I've also come across that. But 61 seems to be the more agreed upon year.
Okay,
There are quite a few details that we still do not know of today with regards to the battle. I'll get to it when I speak, so
sure.
I'm not going to throw it out here.
But I'm definitely not going to do any spoilers. Obviously, as I had mentioned, this is going to be involving a revolt by the infamous Boudica. So she's going to be leading rebel forces against a Roman army under Gaius Suetonius Paulinus. And well, other than that, because I don't want to give anything away, from my point of view, it seems that a lot of this is due to a lot of exploitation of the Britons and a lot of abuse, particularly against the family of Boudica and Boudica herself, if it's to be believed, because I can already tell the sources very, very much differ on what exactly happened to her, and it goes from pretty horrible stuff to less horrible stuff as far as I can see. But I'll leave it to
But
you, Gaurav.
yeah, I was just going to say for today's episode, my background actually fits the bill. Just going to say that.
Okay.
In the sense, I have the Roman tent, general's tent that you created for me. So thank you for that.
By the way, I have to mention this for people. So people are going to look at what is Garub's background, and they're going to assume that I used AI software to just randomly make something. I do this often. It is not AI. Actually, what I did was I took a famous scene from the first movie of Gladiator, since now there's unfortunately a sequel, and it's the scene where Maximus is entering the tent of Marcus Aurelius, and if you're looking just to your right, Garub, to the right of your head, that's where Marcus Aurelius would be standing. I just kind of brushed
Hmm.
him out of it so that it looked like it's an empty room. And I had to do a little detailing because if I left it the way it was, the lighting and everything was pretty bad. But it came out pretty well. It's an interesting little art piece, I'd say. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for that, Greg. Really appreciate it. So, Perhaps before we get into the Battle of Watling Street, we're gonna have to turn back the clock about 20 odd years about why was there a Roman invasion of Britain in the first place. So now Britain was known to the Romans for about a century now. Caesar, during his Gallic Wars, made two invasion attempts of the island and got some mostly like a publicity boost rather than any real gains. And there was, after the subjugation of Gaul, no doubt there was trade and contact between them because the Gallic tribes, especially those in the north, had the various trade relationships. Now, according to Augustus, during his reign as well, two kings of the various tribes that ruled in Britain had even fled to his court. And it was actually said that the trade was so lucrative that there was actually no financial gain for the Romans to even conquer the island, as the trade customs and levies, the tax levied on it, would be would be less if the island was actually conquered and annexed proper. Which is why Rome never really bothered going there. Now, in the 40s AD, we have, kind of a political flux going around both in the Britannic lands and in Rome. So let's tackle with the Britons first. The Cativaloni tribe were one of the most powerful tribes located around central England. One moment, let me just actually bring up my screen. Greg, could you just send the record? Let me share.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yep. Thank you. And one sec. Just let me know if you are able to see the conquest map.
Yeah. So just for the audience listening in audio only, it's a map of Britain and it's the invasion routes throughout the years.
Yep. So the Cativaloni, as you could see on this map, are kind of in like the southern central part, around where you'll have London and all today, right? And they were the most powerful tribe at that time, and they had just defeated the Triovantes and had even captured the city of Camulodunum, which is around here. You see where these yellow and which is the modern day city of Colchester. So they are now the power brokers, and they've kind of created a political, flux. And then the Atrebates, who are south of the Cativaloni, are now threatened, and they kind of talk to the Romans, who they have friendly trading relationships with, that, hey guys, do you mind just helping out? Very eerily similar to how Caesar stepped in during the Gallic Wars with the Helvetii and other allied tribes. So this was the power vacuum, or rather the political scenario in Britain. Now, at the same time in Rome, the mad emperor Caligula, yep, mad emperor, was assassinated in 41 AD. Now, it was speculated between 39 and 40 AD, Caligula had planned for the conquest of Britain himself, but ultimately settled down with his famous war on Neptune, where he had about 10 legions march into the northern shores of the French beaches, Gallic beaches, sorry, not French yet. And he stabbed the water because he is beating the crap out of Neptune's army, and just comes back and has a triumph for his efforts. So,
Oh God, yeah.
in 41 AD, Caligula is assassinated by some senators and the Praetorians, and his uncle Claudius, who would succeed, was quite aware of the plot. Since he was actually a butt of a lot of jokes from Caligula, but that guy had anyways made way too many enemies by then. The Senate, after some fighting with the Germanic bodyguards, which quieted down the Senate, devolves into two camps about who's going to be emperor, and then the Praetorians storm in and say, "Hey, Claudius is our guy. He's going to be the emperor. You guys can't do anything about it." Now, Claudius was one of the most unfortunate members of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, even though he was born in 10 AD, and so 10 BC, sorry, my bad. And he ascends to the throne in 40 AD, 41 AD. He had a limp and deafness since from a young age that the family, which was the ruling family, so he's a direct descendant of Octavian and Augustus. They kind of ostracized him and all. So the Praetorian had hoped by putting this guy on the throne, they are going to have, someone they can easily control. But surprise, surprise, while he did have his physical limitations, he did have like a stool, he was known to rule over, he needed a slave to kind of recite everything. The guy was pretty smart. He actually played this handicap that in the purges of Tiberius and Caligula in the preceding couple of decades, he actually escaped unscathed because no one considered him a threat. So when he ascends to the throne, he does the usual thing of needs to legitimize himself. He takes the titles and he says, "Hey, I'm a direct descendant of the Augustus's family, so I don't need to claim legitimacy." But it did not hurt that he bribed the Praetorian and the army. And the main thing was he needs military conquest and glory, because to the Romans, a general and politician or leader are the same thing. You got to have some military experience. And unfortunately, he cannot do that. He's never had that. So this was during his reign, the provinces of Thrace, Noricum, and Lycia and Judea were annexed proper. Mauritania, which is kind of like where Morocco is, so south of Spain and North Africa, is also annexed fully. But his biggest ambition was to, take over Britain. He plans for the conquest. And now, as I mentioned, with the tribe that is the Atreides now threatened and calling for aid, he now has a excuse to send in the legions. Now, we don't know how many legions were really dispatched at the start. It was about 4 legions, which was Legio to Augusta. And this was commanded by the legate Vespasian, who would be the future emperor of the Romans as well. You also had the 9th Hispania, 14th Gemina, and the 20th Valeria Victrix, who were all involved in the initial conquest. And it was said after winning some battles at the start against the tribal alliance raised by the Catavalani chieftain Craticus, and the Romans securing, the southeasternmost part of England, Claudius even comes himself, with reinforcements, marches, spends some time organizing the provinces and returns. But he's got his military legitimacy. And from here, as you can see, over the next 4 years, Aulus Plautius, he pretty much conquers most of southern and central England. And the resistance at this time is led by the Catavalonic chieftain Craticus. And after several defeats in the open, he actually switches to guerrilla warfare for the next 6-7 years. And is a constant pain in Rome's side, but ultimately he is betrayed by the Pictish people and then sent to Rome, where his defiance actually impressed the Senate so much that they allowed him to live his life out in Rome as a prisoner slash guest, not a hostage, but yeah. So as we approach towards 60 AD, you have pretty much like parts of southern Wales, most of southern England and central England completely around till the level of where Wales is. I'm sorry, I don't know my geography of modern day English counties that well. They are pretty much either allied with the Romans or they are completely annexed and conquered. Now, one tribe that is at the moment not under Roman control directly are the Iceni, based around like the area of Norfolk. Yep. So if you can see this map, Greg, and the audience, this red is where their lands were approximately there.
Hmm.
Now, they kind of avoided anything against Rome by the proper use of like diplomacy. So their king at the time, Boudica's husband, was Prastigus. Over a long reign, he amassed a lot of wealth. So he was able to kind of bribe his way into not being annexed. And what he had done in his will, which he hoped would at least secure Roman friendship, was he left half of his kingdom to the Roman emperor, which was at this time Nero, and the other half was to remain under his family's control. That is, he left it to his wife and daughters. Wife being our protagonist for, or chief character for this, Boudica. And he hoped that this should provide at once for the tranquility of his kingdom and family. Intentions were fair. I won't deny that, but the events were otherwise. And this is literally from the works of Tacitus, who was a senator and historian of that era as well. The centurions ravaged the land. They just did not give a damn. A lot of men, booty, wealth was forcefully taken. Villages were plundered, people were raped, beaten, including Boudica herself when she protested. When she brought up the will, and in response, her two daughters were raped by the Romans, and she was publicly flogged and humiliated, which no doubt not only um, forget wounding her pride, enraged her and a lot of the subjects with the overall treatment. And in this, the Iceni were technically properly fully annexed. Now, it is also said that around the time that Roman moneylenders had wanted payment back, which is why the chief Roman administrators at the time actually sent out these plundering raids, for lack of a better term, into Iceni territory. And that is probably one reason why the Romans, enacted such brutality. Now, so with this obvious enragement, we now have Boudica, rising up, and it's quite easy for her to garner a lot of support that within no time the entire Iceni tribe are in full revolt. Craig, do you have anything you might want to add about Boudica?
I don't have much to be honest, because you kind of you kind of said most of what I had. But here, let me put up just a moment. Let me put up a picture of her. Okay, there we go. So, as you said, she was the queen at the what is day kind of present Norfolk and parts of
Yeah,
Cambridgeshire,
Norfolk.
Suffolk, and Lincolnshire. So that general area that was shown on the map. Her tribe, was one of the earliest. It was actually, I think, I don't know if their tribe was specifically the earliest one known to make coinage in Britain, but there's certainly they would provide quite a revolt in 47 AD back then with Roman governor Publius Ostorius Scapula, which resulted in him quelling the rebellion, and then he planned to disarm all of the people there and put them under Roman control. The Romans allowed them to be kind of, I guess you could say, independent, even though they quelled the uprising. And then we have her husband, as you had mentioned, Prasutagus, who maintained quite a kingdom, quite a lot of a fortune. But it seems when he made that idea of giving half in his will over to Emperor Nero and then the other half to his family, well, that didn't result in a great thing in the end because after his death, and I guess it's again the sources say 60 or 61, we'll say it's 61 AD. The Romans decided to ignore his will and simply annex his kingdom. And as you mentioned, they brutally pillaged the countryside. They ransacked his personal household. And given the source, they may have brutalized Boudica and her daughters. So, according to Tacitus, Boudica was flogged in public, her daughters were raped, and actually, of course, another source I'm sure you're using from Dio, he uh, instead cites three different other causes for the rebellion, not being these kind of like these rapes and abuses upon her family. And that was the recalling of the loans you mentioned that were given to the
Hmm.
Britons by Seneca. Uh, Dicenus Caetus, confiscation of money formerly loaned to the Britons by the Emperor Claudius and Boudica's own entities. The loans were thought to be through the tribe as a like kind of a gift repayment or something. But from what I read in kind of the more detailed sources, yeah, Boudica and her daughters seemed like they did get raped because it kind of makes sense given what's going to happen now in the history. And other than that, I didn't want to go further past what happens in the revolt, but that's basically Boudica.
Yeah, so I think I'll just go back. So I think now that we have set the context of the enraged population, not only the
Mm.
enraged nobility and leadership, but you really can make the case for the entire Iceni tribe. They rise up in revolt and they immediately have support from the local tribes as well. And they are joined by the Trinobantes, which are the tribe just immediately south of them, and were a tribe that the Catavilani tribe had initially conquered. Just one moment. Just need to share again. And considering we have a situation where the the island was just recently conquered, we there is still going to be lingering resentment against Rome. I'm pretty sure there is a good chance of the people who have um, also gone over to the Roman side. They are not. One moment.
Psst. Hey, you ever hear me talk about some great Pacific War movie or documentary like Pearl Harbor Minute by Minute over on Netflix and feel the urge to watch it for yourself? Uh-oh, you live in Japan and your Netflix doesn't have it? Must suck to be you.
Sucks to be me right now.
Oh wow, season 4 of Demon Slayer is out. Oh wait, I can't watch it on Canadian Netflix, but it's over on Japan Netflix? Whatever will I do?
Oh no, no.
Being blocked from regional content? With private internet access, you too can watch Demon Slayer Season 4 by switching your IP address to Japan.
Yes! Hell yeah!
Why stop with Japan? With private internet access, you can change your IP address to over 84 different countries and every single US state, giving you access to region-restricted content all over the world.
Nice.
Many websites and services like Netflix are only accessible depending on your physical location, but private internet access helps you overcome these restrictions. Think about it, without private internet access, it's like paying for a TV series and missing out on the latest season. Shots fired, Demon Slayer on Canadian Netflix.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Ever fear people are gonna find your Google searches?
Banzai! Banzai! Banzai!
FBI, open up!
Private internet access makes sure that those Google searches remain a buried secret, as private internet access encrypts your internet access and has a no logs policy. Think you're safe with the local coffee shop's free Wi-Fi? No, you are certainly not. Private internet access gives you more privacy features than any other software, and real-time protection from malware and trackers, giving you peace of mind knowing those Google searches remain seen by you and you alone. Private internet access has a no-log policy that they've defended in court, which means they are not storing any of your browsing data. Hey, are you like me using different devices under one household? Private internet access is available on all platforms and protects an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. I personally use private internet access to unblock movies and TV series from all across the globe, and I sleep easier writing scripts for my YouTube channel and others knowing my data is secure. Look, this is a no-brainer. Sign up with my link in the description of this video to get 83% off, plus 4 months for free, so it ends up being only around $2 per month. Signing up for private internet access is risk-free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and 24/7 customer support is available. So don't forget to click www.piavpn.com/the Pacific War Channel, and a big thanks to Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video.
I guess this is one thing about Zooms.
Yeah, sorry audience. Yeah, sometimes when you try to share a screen on Zoom, the picture just doesn't come up for some reason. It's happened like once before in the episode. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know why this one won't come up. Yeah.
Is this visible?
No, you want to try tabbing one of the previous pictures?
One moment. This. Is there an image now?
No. So I guess just read
All
this
right.
image. Yeah.
No, this is a different image. Is there a picture now?
No. I don't know.
Okay,
So
I
it's
don't
just
know.
Zoom tomfoolery, so we'll just continue on, yeah.
Yeah, so they march south first, and they've approached one of the major cities of the Roman occupation, which is the city of Camulodunum, which is modern day Colchester. And it is the former capital of the Trinovantes tribe as well. Now, a lot of the veterans that had been settled by the Romans were based here. So one of the things of Roman colonization is they actually settle their veterans abroad in newly conquered areas to kind of help in the speeding up of the Romanization of the province. So a lot of the veterans were here, and there was also a big temple to Claudius, which had been erected by heavily extorting the locals. So that's not really a good symbol. And then the commanding, with knowing that such a threat was coming, Legio 9 Hispania was actually dispatched in parts to kind of reinforce the city. But Boudica had got the intel of their movements, and on the passage, on their way to the city, they were ambushed and massacred. But we unfortunately do not know where near Camulodunum it happened, and only like a few squadrons of cavalry and the overall force commander escaped. The rest of the men were slaughtered. And the Romans also asked like the kind of second in command to the governor, Catus Decianus, to send aid. Now, he was the guy who actually was leading the pillaging of the Iceni tribe because, as I'll get to, the governor was not available at this time to make a decision. And he just sends 200 poorly equipped auxiliary troops to the city's aid. Yep, that really helped. And the Romans within Camulodunum withdrew into the Temple of Claudius, which was kind of in the eastern side of the city. And they just held out for 2 days before it fell. And the city was methodically destroyed. Nothing was spared. And our great Catus Decianus whose actions kind of was the spark that triggered this revolt. He flees to Gaul, not willing to face the consequences of his actions. Now, at the same time, this is around this time, a messenger reaches Gaius Suetonius Paulinus, the governor of Roman Britain, as per the orders of Emperor Nero. So in the province, he is pretty much the emperor for all purposes. Everyone reports up to him. Greg, do you have anything you want to talk about Pollinus?
Yes, sure. Here, let me pull up a picture. There we go. This is the best picture I could find on him. You can see it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's actually very ambiguous as to his early life, but most likely he was born in Pisarum, and he would end up serving as praetor in 40 AD, and then he was appointed governor of Mauritania, that's modern-day Morocco, in 41 AD. He would be suppressing, well, actually, he alongside another man, Gnaeus Hosidius Geta, would help suppress a revolt led by Edamon, and he would become the first Roman commander to lead troops across the Atlas Mountains. So yeah, he had a lot of experience in North Africa. In 58 AD, before becoming consul, Pollinus was appointed governor of Britain, replacing the recently dead Quintus Vernus. He continued Vernus's policies of aggressively subduing the tribes, especially those in Wales, and he was quite successful for over 2 years. He earned quite a reputation as a great military commander, and he would later become a rival to Cneius Domitius Corbulo. Now, bringing us up to date, in 60 AD, he assaulted the island of Anglesey, which was a refuge for British fugitives at that point, and it was a stronghold of the Druids. And yeah, during this point, when he was kind of doing that little campaign, it was then Boudica raised a revolt, kind of exploiting the situation because he was gone from like his main command center in the southwest, and then yeah, she would attack. So I guess you could say he was kind of taking with his pants down a little bit.
True enough, and it is funnily enough mentioning the assault on the Druids in Anglesey. The he had just completed a pretty crushing victory over the Druids at that time when the news reaches him, and uh, you know he goes there and he immediately withdraws his forces. So as his men, the infantry forces are moving back and marching down towards southern and central England, he actually rides ahead to the city of Londinium. I don't think it's quite evident which city is that. London, which is another major, um, you know, Roman city at the time. Craig, are you able to share those images? Uh, One second, let me just give it a last try. Is there an image visible?
No.
Okay, I don't know what Zoom's decided to do.
Yeah, one sec, I'll see. Yeah,
So,
so just continue on.
yeah. So Londinium is the next target of the rebel forces, and Pollinus has anyways reached here with with some of his cavalry forces. So it's just a few hundred horsemen, nothing really spectacular. He even contemplates briefly about defending the city, but then he just realizes, no, I need my army, and he retreats. But he did order the uh, population to evacuate and withdrew. And even though there is a destruction layer that was literally called the Boudica destruction horizon. Yes. So if now that Zoom has decided to work a bit, there's a map. So the purple line is what I drew to kind of give you an idea of how Boudica's revolt moved. So they started around the territory of the Iceni in near the Norfolk area, moved down to Camulodunum, and now they're at Londinium or London. The citizens evacuate with their portable wealth. Very few really stay, but there's still a few thousands who are murdered with when the hordes of Britannic warriors arrive. And the rebels burned Londinium, according to Tacitus, torturing and killing everyone who had not evacuated with the governor. And archaeology also shows a thick red layer of burnt debris covering the coins and pottery dating before 61 AD. Yep. So this is actually, archaeologists have called this the Boudica destruction horizon. That is the thoroughness of the destruction she perpetrated.
Yes, for the audience, we're showing anthropology survey of what he was talking about.
True. And the next major settlement that was also destroyed was the city of Verulamium, which is modern day St. Albans. So it's just north of London. It's pretty close by. And it was pretty gruesome what the captured Romans also got. Between these three settlements, it's estimated between 70 to 80,000 Roman settlers had been killed. And according to Tacitus, the Britons had no interest in taking and selling prisoners, which I might add is quite lucrative for any kingdom at the time. And they were only interested in slaughter by gibbet, fire, or cross. And Cassius Dio just kind of adds another primary historian source. He just adds to the details. He's saying the noblest women were impaled on spikes and had their breasts cut off and sewn to their mouths, to the accompaniment of sacrifice, banquets, and wanton behavior in sacred places, particularly the groves of Andraste. Yeah, the ancient Britons were quite something. Now, it is not known, but some historians have suggested that, the modern day city of Colchester was also destroyed, but there's very limited evidence to support it. But we do know that Camulodunum, Londinium, and Verulamium have been, completely destroyed. Now, as Pollinus retreats up Watling Street and moving towards, northwest and Wales, he's doing this to allow his legions to march down to meet him, which was campaigning with him against the Druids, and also, give them time to rest up and overstretch the enemy forces. Now, Pollinus at this time has the Legio 14 Gemina, which was a legion that had been raised by Julius Caesar during his Gallic Wars and had been serving since then. And he also had some temporary detachment Vexillatios from Legio 20 Valeria Victrix. Keep in mind, right now, Legio 9 Hispania has been completely destroyed by the rebels. Between these two, he has about 7,000 legionary infantry with him. He does try to have Legio 2 Augusta join him and sends orders. And Legio 2 is based in the southwest of England near the city of Exeter right now. And curiously, the camp prefect is the one that denies the request. The man was Ponius Postumus, which is quite curious because since he's the camp prefect, he's third in command of the legion. He's a veteran, decorated soldier who's served in the Roman military for decades. But it is not known why the legate was not there, nor was the young broad-striped military tribune, who's the number 2. Some suggestions say that they were already with Pollinus on his staff during the Anglesey campaign, or some say they were both sick. But either way, Legio 2 does not move forward. He has 7,000, legionary infantry. Pollinus, anyways, and they move up Watling Street. Craig, do you have the picture of Watling Street that I shared? Yeah. So the blue, the previous one, please. The blue is kind of the road that we knew as Watling Street, which is where Pollinus and Boudica's forces went. He wants to draw them away to a battleground of his choosing, and we don't know where the real battleground is. One estimate is saying that it was in a grove that today would be about 25 miles west of Birmingham, which is where you could see broadly where the map ends. Now, I have to say, Craig, considering how the Romans used to fight in Scipio's time, and now they are way more tactful in the way they deploy for battle. Pollinus, could you go to the battle map, please? Yep. So Pollinus positions himself on the side as you can hear, which is hemmed in by the forest. This is on a gentle hill, where you can see the Roman lines have been deployed, and it is flanked by forests on two sides and the rear. While it means there's no escape, it also has ensured that the Celtic horde, the Britannic horde that is going to come their way, is not going to be able to outflank them or get behind them. And the hills also, not only with the high ground of the terrain, have few defiles and passages, which acts as a choke point. So not many warriors can rush up at the same time to engage the Roman lines. As you can see on the map, the 7,000 legionary infantry form the core and center of the army, which is, as I said, made up of the 14th Legion with some detachments of the 20th Legion. On the flanks of them, as you can see, are a grand total of 6 auxiliary infantry cohorts. So that's about 3,000 men. They're not as heavily equipped, but pretty well equipped, especially in comparison to their opponents. And on the extreme flanks, you have the cavalry. He had 2 alloy of cavalry. And what is known is these were the Batavian cavalry from the Rhine region, who have been amongst the most feared cavalry units in the Roman realm for over a century.
I was gonna ask, it's just because I happen to be writing something for Wizards and Warriors, the fantasy Kings and Generals channel, about it's the Easternling tribes in Lord of the Rings, and Tolkien based a confederacy called the Wain Riders on people such as this, because I can see that in this map they're using carts and wagons in the back. I actually don't actually know the history of this. Did Boudica's forces during this revolt, did they use the wagons offensively, or is this like a defensive thing only?
I'll get to it when I'm
Okay.
about to speak about there, but it was there, but it was not really for any purpose except spectacle.
Okay.
So Boudica, as you can see, has a massive horde of warriors arrayed against the Romans. And by now, it's not only the Iceni and Revanti tribes, but definitely thousands of tribesmen from the other, recently subjugated peoples that have joined her. The number of warriors facing the Romans, it's still really unknown. Cassius Dio goes up to as high as almost 230,000. Tacitus says it's about 100 to 120,000 warriors. Modern
Right.
historians have just said it's lower, but we don't really know the figure. But it is known that the Romans were significantly outnumbered.
I mean,
They
but
have a
that's
grand total of.
to be expected, but I would be surprised if it's nothing. If it's over 3 times the amount, I would be surprised. But yes.
I think the most conservative estimates, even by modern historians, still put it at about 6-7 times.
All right.
But yeah, we don't really know what's the truth, because a lot of sources actually quote more on Tacitus's numbers, which for a short uprising could also be feasible. A lot of this are like, everyone in just revolt. So a lot of these people are like, the farmhands, tradesmen of the various tribes.
It's true that, yeah, that does have to be taken into consideration.
It's not just their warrior class, because keep in mind, except the Romans and maybe Alexander's army, no one really kept more than say the elite royal bodyguard and
Yeah.
not a professional army. So anyways, they are just arrayed in a gargantuan brawl, and the few chariots which form the vanguard, which is just used by the nobility. And behind them, as you can see, the yellow rectangles are the various carts and wagons, which is their baggage, and also where their family, elderly, the sick, children, everyone up there to kind of urge them on and watch them beat the Romans to other smithereens. And it was, I guess, also a bit of a way they thought that maybe they are not going to let the Romans escape.
Nor let
Given
their men retreat, it seems.
Well, that went very well. Now, before the battle, the customary speeches take place, because what you can't have a battle in the ancient times without a speech, right? Now, according to Tacitus, he imagines this is his speech that he says Boudica would have said to her warriors. Keep in mind, this is not actually known because he writes about this 50 years later. He says, but now it is not as a woman descended from noble ancestry, but as one of the people that I am avenging lost freedom, my scourged body, the outraged chastity of my daughters. Roman lust has gone so far that not our very persons, nor even age or virginity are left unpolluted. But heaven is on the side of a righteous vengeance. A legion which dared to fight has perished. The rest are hiding themselves in their camp or are thinking anxiously of flight. They will not sustain even the din and the shout of many thousands, much less the charge and our blows. If you weigh well the strength of the armies and the causes of war, you would see that this battle you must conquer or die. This is a woman's resolve. As for men, they may live and be slaves. If anything, that's quite defiant for her character, but given that she's the leader of the revolts, could be pretty in character. And at the same time, that he also has Suetonius Paulinus, giving his business-like speech to his men. He says, ignore the racket made by these savages. There are more women than men in their ranks. They are not soldiers. They're not even properly equipped. We have beaten them before, and when they see our weapons and feel our spirit, they will crack. Stick together. Throw the javelins, then push forward. Knock them down with your shields and finish them off with your swords. Forget about plunder. Just win and you will have everything. And
She's pretty to the point.
that's exactly why it's business-like. But it's actually pretty good that he's mentioning do not plunder, because that's a charming hobby that leads so many winnable battles to become an utter disaster. And you just see that time and time again. Now, as you can see, this is a really do or die situation for both. The Romans actually, it's more so since they have nowhere to retreat. When the battle commences, you actually have the chariots first coming and trying to throw javelins and insults at the Romans. They might cause a few casualties with their projectiles, but nothing to really even bother the Roman line. And then they withdraw. And even though chariot warfare was an integral part of the Britons at this time, the Romans had disarmed them and taken a lot of their horses to be pressed into service across the empire. So they would not really have a sizable force. It's just going to be an infantry brawl. And now you have this gargantuan horde and warbands just charging at you. They have no formation, they have no commander. So anything like, a cohort, century, or officers to command them, nothing. You're just going to charge and you're just going to fight.
Yeah, this is tribal people like looking for one-on-one fights, basically.
And it's not like their physique and strength is anything to be laughed at.
No.
Ancient Britons were said to be around 172 to 175 centimeters tall. And given a lot of them will be, working on their farms, working with animals, working in the smiths, they are already in really labor-intensive tasks. So they're naturally going to be pretty powerful people, absolute strength. The standard Roman was, it seems, around 162 to 165 centimeters as well. So they are shorter. But while they're not as heavily armored and equipped as the Romans, they have successfully looted their armories from the 3 cities that they destroyed. So at least they are better equipped as compared to the start of the revolt. Now you have these formations charging up towards the Roman lines. The Romans are not going to move, right? They are on a hilltop. There are defiles which limit the access ways, and they want the upward momentum to sap the charge of the momentum. And when these guys, the Britannic army comes, and they are within under 30 meters or so from the Roman lines, the legionaries would shower them with 2 volleys of the peel out. Standard Roman tactics of throwing their javelins. These guys are not at all as well equipped with armor or shields. They just have mostly long swords and spears. And the 2 volleys of javelins, each about several thousand projectiles, it's going to cause a lot of havoc in the front lines. And it is at this moment Pollinus orders the charge, which I'm pretty sure the Britons would not have expected, given the numerical disparity. They advance in a series of offensive-shaped wedges, which is a Roman formation designed to break through enemy hosts. It also allows them to fight on multiple fronts. And this is where I really want to spend a little bit of time just talking about the scientific and methodical way in which the Romans have trained their men. As stated in Pollinus's speech, they were using the boss of the shield to knock down any enemy warrior. So the boss is, if you could see, maybe the guy on the right, Greg, towards the right, the Roman soldier on the right. It is that metal knob on the front of the shield. While the shield is pretty much just wood with leather wrapped around it, the boss is metal. It's going to stagger you. And the idea is they bludgeon you with that. As you go back, the Roman legionary is going to thrust and stab you with your guard open. And the Romans never really slash. That's not their primary thrusting maneuver with their sword. They stab, because it actually uses less energy per movement than a slash across the torso.
Yeah, as Dan Carlin once explained in 2 of his podcasts, the Romans basically came to a point where they were looking at war like an administrator of a business. How do we make everything so efficient? How do we reduce the amount of blood that goes on the ground we're standing so we don't slip? How do we reduce the blood that goes over our hands and arms so we don't drop our weapons? And like you said, don't waste time and energy slashing when we can just poke it into the enemy, and then we can go on for longer than them, outlast them like a box, like Muhammad Ali would outlast, people in boxing. It's very interesting. Yeah.
It is. And you can also consider the fact that the pilum, one of the 2 screws that hold it in place, was actually wooden and not metal. And this allowed it to bend, which ensured that even if it's not going to kill the soldier, it's going to destroy his ability to use a shield. There was actually that science, and it's well known that in training and not in wartime, the Roman weapons and shields that they used were far heavier than their actual combat gear, which improved their endurance and stamina magnificently, that they could outlast pretty much a lot of people.
This is exactly what Goku and Piccolo did in Dragon Ball Z, by the way. I'm just going to put that one out there.
Well, at least they don't spend 5 episodes. The Romans don't spend 5 episodes charging up a spirit bomb.
Yeah.
But this is how the Romans start to advance. Knock with the shield in the opening stab, and then pull your shield back. Pollinus wanted his men to fight in close order. And this is another place where the gladius, a Roman short sword, also helps. Because the Roman gladius was about, if you include the pommel and the grip, it was about 70 centimeters. And so it's not really a big sword, but the advantage is you don't need that much area to maneuver. Since anyways you're also stabbing, you are not going to need a arc around you to move the sword to generate the power to cause damage. So they can fight in close orders. The shields are going to give mutual overlapping protection. The Britons, like many of Rome's adversaries in Europe at the time, they primarily use long swords and spears as their main weapons. And that's what they're trained with. These are great individual weapons, but you need the reason spears are so effective with cavalry is they have the height and at least they have the means to maneuver and use it. But you cannot use it in close quarters combat. And now, just because of the sheer mass of the enemies, the Romans are advancing slowly, but they are steadily advancing. Any warrior who is not killed, but is just, knocked down or slips, he gets trampled over by the Romans as they continue their advance. And after a couple of hours, they are pretty much on the opposite end of the battlefield, much to the frustration, nervousness, fear of everybody, because the warriors also know that their families are behind in the wagon forts cheering and watching. And the families are now like, we're supposed to be winning. Why are they coming back here?
Might I add, this is in history, this is something that's reoccurring against Rome. So the Romans have seen this throughout the centuries, especially with the Gallic tribes and that. There was different groups of people that used wains, as they were called, or wagons and carts as defensive means and to transport, their families, the sick, the wounded, the supplies. But when they got atop the wains or to the sides behind them, they were pretty useful. If you had spears and projectile weapons, you could use them as defensive fortification structures. I'm just making this point because I've been writing so long about Tolkien, what he was influenced in history for some of the peoples he wrote about, and the Wain Riders, which are like the biggest ones that use chariots and wagons offensively as well as defensively. I think part of that influence had to be the Bretonian people and a lot of
I
other
would
people like the
just
Huns.
it's not only the tribesmen here. You can make the case for the Cimbri as well when they had a great migration in the
Yeah,
100 BC or so. You can also talk about the Helvetii when they were migrating
hmm
as well,
the
which is where
Scythians also apparently. Yeah,
Caesar also encountered this. And even the Thracians, when Alexander was subjugating
yeah.
the area before his conquest, at the Chipka Pass battle, they utilized the wagons more offensively to try to disrupt the unity of the phalanx. But yeah, there are uses as well beyond transport and
But
logistics.
while it would probably be surprising to some peoples in war, I think against the Romans, it's one of the worst things because the Romans would have had excellent experience against this as a tactic.
It's you can make the same thing for the Romans and their use of fighting against elephants after going
Yeah.
up against Pyrrhus of Epirus. They actually started to adapt well to the elephants right from the second battle itself.
hmm
Like you got to give them that adaptability.
The
That
Romans are very, very gifted at losing a battle and then coming
uh,
back much harder.
that is so true. See, the kid that gets beaten up and then just comes back with a sledgehammer and whacks the hell out of you.
Yep.
And so yeah, just back to the battle. The panic factor no doubt increases. So the civilians who would be like, I guess non-combatants is the better term, not civilians, who would be in the yellow wagon forts, they start to go away, and the mass of warriors as well who are being pushed back, the rear lines also start to retreat. Panic is spreading. And what happens is that the wagons, because of the way they are placed, actually act as choke points. So the number of people wanting to get out is way more than the number of people actually getting out. And as the Romans are building momentum, you just have a sandwich form, wagon and Roman, with the Britons in the middle. And The battle's over. The massacre is still going to continue. And the Roman soldiers showed no mercy. They stuck to Pollinus's orders and just, they don't look at plunder or anything because they are now breaching the baggage camp and camp of riches, in army sense. They continue to kill without any mercy. So man, woman, child, beast, all were fell. And they scattered, and the pursuit lasted much longer because it is said this battle, which we don't even know the date, was actually in the high summer. So there was an extended period of daylight. And at the end of the battle, when the pursuit ended and the Britons had fled, 80,000 of their number, include both combatants and non-combatants, were dead on the field. And per sources, maybe around 400 Romans. While you may not fully accept that, the number's probably understated a bit, but I won't question the overwhelming ratio.
Yes.
I don't think that is up for debate.
I think the Romans handily served these people a defeat. And I think these people, upon seeing how insignificant their tactics were against the Roman formations, they must have freaked out. And we all know you incur more casualties when you're fleeing the battlefield, and the Romans must have just trampled them.
Yeah, it was. And this is where, a brawler versus a proper soldier faces off. And we know the results. And yeah, but I would say that the casualties were definitely on the lighter side because even though the Romans overall had lost an entire legion in the entire campaign, losing a lot of strength of a second legion would have crippled their ability to continue fighting and subjugating the land, which we know continued for the next 2.5 decades more. So I wouldn't say it really crippled their manpower at all. And after this, there were some long-term and short-term consequences, no doubt. So Boudica, she flees the battle. She's not amongst the dead. And according to the sources, Tacitus says Boudica poisoned herself, whereas Agricola, who was a subordinate of Pollinus serving under him at this time, he was a young man, who would later lead the Roman conquest into Scotland, I might add, in 84 BC. He does not mention anything of suicide and just attributes the end of the revolt to complacency, and nothing's mentioned about Boudica's fate. And Cassius Dio says that Boudica was given a lavish funeral because she died of illness. So her true cause of death is unknown, but it is known she perishes one way or the other through after this battle. And her burial site is actually unknown. It is said to be somewhere in the southern half of Great Britain. And this, as much as we don't even know where Watling Street's battle actually took place, we don't even know where her tomb is. Some have said it's in Flintshire, Wales. And others say that is just where she died, but not where she was buried. And there is a legend that says she's actually buried under platform 10 of King's Cross Station in London. Well, it's pretty close to 9 3/4. So if you're
I was going to say,
if you're a history fan and also a Harry Potter fan, King's Cross is definitely on the list.
Yeah.
And this battle pretty much ensured that central and southern Britain was now under full Roman control and subjugation. Northern Britain still held out for a couple of decades more, but by the 80s AD, Wales, Northern England, and even parts of Scotland for a while were completely under Roman rule. And this also ensured that the Romans would not pull out this victory, because Emperor Nero would have got the reports by now of the uprising. And with the death toll that he would have probably been given before the battle, it's a significant blow to the Roman colonization that he did consider pulling out, but when the news of Watling Street's battle would have reached him a few weeks after, considering it would have taken that much time for a messenger to get to the emperor. The Roman stayed put and would not withdraw from Britain till the 5th century. And there were some immediate other consequences as well for the legions. So the 14th Legion were given a new honorific title, and they were given the title of Martia Victrix, and their reputation within the empire and in the Roman military skyrocketed. They were like, the legions, like how you had Caesar's 10th Legion or Trajan's 30th Legion. At this time, it was these guys, the 14th. And our dear friend, Publius Postumus of Legio II Augusta, he committed suicide.
Damn.
Well, it said that it was due to the soldiers forcing him to commit suicide because he denied them because he chose not to move as he was in command at the time. He denied these men the chance of honor.
Oof. Yeah.
And let's be honest, do you think Pollinus is gonna forget this insult, especially considering he won an overwhelming victory?
Nope, he's going to exploit it, that's for sure.
So that was the immediate consequences. And we'll see Roman Britain generally does now remain a pretty stable area for the rest of Imperial Roman Britain, except for probably when you had the Gallic Empire break away in the crisis of the 3rd century. And a little bit of a revolt in the Year of the Five Emperors. But otherwise, we're good.
All
But
right.
yeah, this brings us to the end of the Battle of Watling Street. So, Greg, I know today I held you hostage,
Yes, certainly did. It's
but thanks for bearing along.
as I will fully admit to the audience every time when it comes to, well, actually, I guess no, this is the Roman. It's weird. I know people are more interested in the Roman Empire in general. When I was in university, I was more interested in the Roman Republic history, so I focused solely upon that. I'm pretty good from start to finish with like the Roman kings all the way to the end of the Roman Republic with Caesar. When it comes to the Empire, it's like I have so many gaps, and certainly the wars in Britain are gaps for me. I knew a lot more about Caesar's little expedition than this. But this is really interesting, and I mean, I wasn't surprised that it brought up all these things I'm writing about for Tolkien research right now, but that was pretty cool. I want to say to the audience before we let you go, if you want to further support the channel, please check out the YouTube membership on this very YouTube channel if you're watching at the Pacific War Channel, or you can go over to the Patreon at www.patreon.com/the Pacific War Channel. By joining either of these, it's identical in prices and what you get access to the exclusive podcast, you get early access to all the content I make, and voting rights for the subjects I will tackle next. Like I said before, this month's exclusive podcast is how the Sicilian Mafia helped the Allies during World War II, and kind of a brief history on Lucky Luciano, or Luciano, depending on how you want to say his name. It's pretty fun. A lot of Mafia stuff. I'll admit it here, I used one specific book as a source, and it's written by mobsters, so it's pretty entertaining to say the least. So it's a lot of interesting dark information. Yeah.
Can I also, I just have to ask this though. Did you mention about the great OSS agent who refused to work with the mafia and tried to
Yeah.
work on his own in Sicily?
Yeah, I go
reading
into a
up-
lot of it. Yeah. Because
That guy was just, that guy matches some of the great, no, not some, the great Beppo Schmidt, I would say,
yeah.
in intelligence.
It's going to be a surprising episode, and ironically, I guess it kind of feeds into my current work with Kings and Generals. I'm writing a ongoing series for them that is the Italian campaign. It's going to be including Sicily. It'll be, let's say, 15 episodes. I think it's going to be about 15 episodes. It's certainly not done. We're about 6 or 7 into it. It's over at their Patreon and YouTube membership. I think it's behind the paywall. It's going to be a very interesting series, and I'm definitely going to turn it into a podcast over here for us. I just want it to get further ahead so I have more time for the literature. And we're going to have a lot of fun with that. It's going to be similar to our North Africa series, I'm sure. We're going to tackle it one by one. And I just finished Operation Shingle. Jeez.
Oh God.
Oh, that was fun. I really tried to make it kind of try to get down to who's really responsible for that debacle, but that's a rabbit hole. But for everybody who is watching this on the Pacific War channel on YouTube, thank you very much. This is indeed going to be the home going forward for Echoes of War. It's actually kind of a gamble because it's going to really mess up the algorithm for me. As you can imagine, I'm supposed to be about the Pacific War, but I'm going to be releasing every single week this podcast titled Echoes of War, and it's going to be tackling general military history. So I really need your support. Please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, and a comment. I need a lot more comments, and seriously, point out things that we say that's incorrect, criticize us. I mean, I love any types of comments, just go at us. Come on, have fun. And yeah, till next time, this has been Craig and Garrow from Echoes of War.